morning. Good morning sa inyo lahat. Magandang umaga, Pilipinas. This is your host, Jingparas. Welcomes you to your program, Coffee Clutch, here on your channel, Sovereign PH TV 911, serving our great community. Coffee Clutch, where the issues are always brought to you hot and steaming. With me today is my co-host, Adopagkalinawan, and our beauty queen, zbsaldua.
Yeah, thank you, Jing. This is adopagkalinawan mixing the brew of your favorite coffee with the latest issues to help improve the lives of Filipinos, but also bringing them the latest, delivering to you nothing but the truth.
And of course, good day to all. Please join us this Saturday, Coffee Talk and Exchange and Share Views. We definitely encourage everybody to share their views, their comments in the comment section below and all of our social media platforms.
Well, today we are very much honored to have our guest, Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade Jr., who is the Chief of the Southern Luzon Command and the spokesperson of the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict. We are very pleased to have you, General. Good morning po. And Ado will introduce you formally.
Thank you, Sir General. Thank you. Member din ng PMA, hinirang class of 1987. He had military art and defense masteral studies at Deakin University at Fort Leavenworth. LCAC po, ang National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, ay kilala rin sa pangalan na Balik Loob Program. So, shoot your questions, Jing.
Well, General, lately you've been a very controversial person. You have been in the limelight. But, of course, our program wants to clear the issues. No. First, we would like you to give our people a background on the issue of red tagging. Ano po ba itong red tagging? And you had been accused of red tagging spree against certain people identified purportedly with the NPA and NDF. Ano po bang para mapaliwanag po natin sa ating mga kababayan po, General?
Thank you, sirs. Thank you, Sir Jing and Kuya Ado. Yeah, actually, red tagging is not in our lexicon. It was invented by Jose Maria Sison, by the Communist Party of the Philippines, purposely to shield themselves from their involvement in the underground organization. As we know, in Europe, for instance, communism is accepted even after the fall of the USSR. Communism is still a party, an active party in most of Europe. But the main difference between the communists in Europe is that they don't have an armed component. In the Philippines, the Communist Party of the Philippines, which Joma founded, has an armed component, the New People's Army. So he devised a way to cover the activities of these legal front organizations using this red tagging. Red tagging actually started sometime in 1957 in the U.S., where a certain Senator Joseph McCarthy was accused of calling dissidents as terrorists. And according to Senator McCarthy, if you walk like a duck, if you talk like a duck, and you look like a duck, you must be a duck. So doon po nagsimula yung red tagging, or sometimes they call it red baiting or McCarthyism, yun ang tawag nila. But it's very prevalent here in the Philippines, especially with this National Democratic Front and the legal front organizations and the CPP, because really this is what they have used to shield themselves from all their activities, their hate campaign against the government, and then all their participation in the underground movement. So, if we suspect someone to be involved in the underground, but you don't have an evidence, and you charge him for being part of the left or the communists, then they will accuse you, especially the members of the security sector, as a red tagger or red tagging. So yun po, essentially, according to the Supreme Court even, there's no such thing as a crime called red tagging. So there's already a jurisprudence on that. But still, they insist on this red tagging because, like I said, it's their only defense. It's their only defense, especially now that it's becoming very clear the involvement of these front organizations with the underground and the violent activities of the NPA and the CPP is now becoming very evident. So what's the difference between our situation maybe 3 years ago with now? This time we have evidence. I think you've watched the Senate inquiry where we were able to present many of these former cadres, and they were themselves identifying these Makabayan members are part, because they used to be part of that organization, said they know what's happening. They know what's happening in this legal front organization. So the main difference is right now we have a lot of evidence against these people, and now they cannot deny that they're members of the underground or the left or the communists. In fact, if you go to their website, it's all there. International League of People's Struggle, which Joma leads as chairman emeritus. All of these red organizations are there. Ibon Foundation, Karapatan, Gabriela. So that's one. Joma Season himself mentioned these organizations during the 24th anniversary of the National Democratic Front. So he identified the Communist Party of the Philippines, the NPA, as NDF member organizations, including, for instance, Kaguma, which is the katipunan ng mga burong makabayan. This is the underground organizations hiding under ACT, or the Alliance of Concerned Teachers. There's he mentioned Kabataang Makabayan, which is the underground organization hiding under the banner of Kabataan, Anakbayan, LFS, CAGP, and then he mentioned Lumaban, or the Lupo ng mga manananggol ng bayan, which is the underground organization covering the actions of this National Union People's Lawyer, which incidentally includes Nery Colmenares and Sarate and all these lawyers fighting the government. So really, their issue is they're being called red, when in fact their face, it's all over. Their face is so red, they talk so red, and we have a lot of evidence against them.
So in other words, General, itong red tagging na parati nilang inaakusa sa ating pamalaan, the armed forces, is just a vehicle, parang cover up to weaken our resolve to end this emergency. Opo.
And weaken our argument against them kung makakalusot. But this time, like I said, hindi na sila makakalusot. In fact, many of these documents that we have recovered from Central Committee members identify their organizations as really part of this of the underground.
I think talaga ang mahirap ngayon is because social media has really been used as a vehicle to bring out these issues, and to the unexperienced eye, the people who haven't really been following the insurgency problem, they look at it as a form of restricting freedom of speech, restricting the fact that if they have criticism against the government, then the government is trying to silence them, or the army is trying to silence them. Pero ako bilang reservist, sir, kasi ang dami ko din natutunan na ways that it's being used as propaganda, this red tagging. And marami din mga citizens na talagang they think it is a way to oppress the people, when actually they haven't been educated enough, which is why Sir Jing was asking about red tagging. How can we really educate more the people about what red tagging is used for, and how the army is really processing all of these accusations? Kasi ang iniisip nila is, basta kalaban ng gobyerno yung nagsalita against the government. Even us, we are public servants, yet we have our own criticisms on the government, no? But we're trying to find solutions and work with the government. However, the real process of the army, kung pwede natin bigyan ng konting background kung ano yung process bago natin sila i-identify na kalaban talaga ng gobyerno or naging part siya ng MPA. Although you mentioned already that it's a part of a website, but for the citizens, how can they differentiate between the information that is accused of oppression or being oppressive of its citizens, and how can it be used as just propaganda?
Yeah, thank you, Z. Actually, that's their concept is really to their strategy is really to for the government to lump them all together as one red group, which is not the case. What we're trying to do is really isolate the legitimate dissenters, these legitimate activists, those who are members of the union, which are actually enshrined in our constitution. You have the right for association, assembly, free speech. But they want the government to make this mistake of calling all of these dissenters, including the violent ones, as members of the Communist Party, which is not really the case. Like I said, we have been doing this education, and paulit-ulit na kailangan gawin natin ito hanggat maintindihan ng taong bayan, kasi paulit-ulit din nilang ginagawang depensa yung red tagging. Ang objective really is for them to convince their members. For instance, all these teachers or members of the association, Alliance of Concerned Teachers, for instance, they want to convince all these members of ACT that the government is trying to discredit their organization. See, ang tawag nila sa atin komunista. When in fact, that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is only to identify these underground cells in ACT. Sabi ko nga, it's called kaguma. So, gusto natin i-expose, gusto natin silang we disrobe them, so that, unmask them, so that their own members will be able to identify among themselves, oh, mali pala itong kinakausap natin dito sa ating organisasyon, because ito pala yung member ng Communist Party, ito pala yung party cell na nakabaon dito sa ating organization. So we have to be very, very careful about his utterances, his policies for the group, kasi nadadamay tayong ibang mga teachers, again talking about teachers, where in fact itong mga teachers naman na ito, ang pinaglalaban lang nila ay yung mga benefits ng teachers, legitimate issues in the academe, and yes, of course, we even in the anti-terror law is specifically mentioned there that we support activism, we protect the rights, we continue to advocate for the rights of our citizens, yung liberties nila kayang madali at pinoprotection na nila yon. But again, linilinaw natin even in this anti-terror law that there's a very fine there's a very fine what do you call this? Very thin line between being an activist and a terrorist. And you will never know, sometimes, and most of the times, sabi ng mga FRs, hindi na namin alam, sir, kung paano talaga kami na-involved dun sa underground sa NPA. Basta nalaman na lang namin, oh, NPA na pala kami. So that's the thing. That's revolutionary dual tactics. That duality is the thing that we really want people to understand. Kasi kung hindi tayo careful, as a union member, we will end up joining the armed group. As a teacher, as a member of ACT, we'll end up becoming a cadre of the CPP, and then eventually joining the underground. At marami na tayong mga former rebels, cadres na nagbigay ng kanilang testimony about this thing.
So General, ang thin line talaga doon ay yung umusad na pala sila sa armed conflict, no ha? Yung armed conflict, yun ang thin line, no? At hindi lahat ng mga aktivista ay talagang dapat na ihilera sa mga katulad nila. Bakit po ba nagkaroon ng ganyang kamulatan ang ating military na hindi naman nasolusyonan ng mga nakaraang administrasyon? Saan po ba nagsimula yan? Dahil dati naman nagpi-peace talks, hindi po ba? National peace talks. Bakit yung thin line na yan, biglang lumabas na wala lang yung mga peace talks? Ano po bang pinagsimulan ng pagkawala niya mga national peace talks na yan?
Okay, it's really, well, it started with the declaration of the president to end this communist armed conflict. Terminate niya yung peace talks. Remember, at the start of this administration, there's the ceasefire and there's a peace talk. So he, in fact, he welcomed all these six members of the CPP in his cabinet, just to show goodwill. Oh, sige, tulungan niya ako dito. Ang pinaglalaban niyo ay good governance. Oh, join me in the government and let's have this peace negotiations. Kaya lang, habang meron tayong ceasefire, ito namang NPA patuloy yung pag-ambush ng mga pulis, mga army. Ceasefire yon. Imagine Christmas yun, Sir Jing, maalala niyo yun, December 24, ina-ambush yung sundalo natin sa Batangas, sa Samar, sa Leyte, sa Bukidnon, all over. So sabi namin sa presidente, this has always been the case because really yung peace talks na yan, at the end of this peace talk, yung end state niyan is not peace. It's not peace. It's the prosecution of the National Democratic Revolution. So patuloy yung armed revolution nila, even with a peace agreement with the government. In fact, dun sa peace framework, nakalagay dun sa Comprehensive Agreement on Socio-Economic Reforms or CASER, one of the substantive agendas that this NDF is pushing. Nakalagay doon, specifically, there will be no demobilization on the part of the NPA. There's no disarmament, there's no demobilization and reintegration or DDR. It's not like the MILF or MNLF na nag-surrender sila and then they were integrated in the armed forces. No, in this agenda of the NPA, the CPP, walang ganon. In fact, ang i-demobilize nila ay yung GRP military, which is the AFP. So when we presented this to the president, sabi na, anong klase ito? Ano pala itong pinag-uusapan natin dito sa peace talks? So that's when the president decided to end these peace talks and then this
Kaiser po nakasaad dyan, ano? Kaiser.
Yes, comprehensive agreement, socio-economic, very clear yan. Hindi namin makita-kita yan. We tried to trace this document. Nakuha namin yan doon sa Bayan USA website. And then, when we did our further research, we were able to find one copy doon sa Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process. So yun, very clear. Ang objective pala nila is not really peace. It's to the minimum, it's a government sharing of power. Or if not, if they're able to supplant the democratic form of government, then sila yung mamumuno. So yun. So going back to your question, why this issue only now? This thin line between these activists and terrorists. Why only now? Because for the first time, you have a president whose resolve really is very clear to end this local communist conflict. Dati, nag-vacillate ang ating leadership. Alam ito ni Sir Jing kasi naging congressman din ito si Sir Jing at naalala niyo yun, sir, yung mga peace talks natin, panahon ni JDB, panahon ni FBR. Pinagtatawa na lang tayo ng NDFP kasi nag-enjoy lang yung mga NDFP panel doon sa Europe. Every time.
Never had the intention, General eh. Parang pakitang tao lang eh.
Delaying tactics.
Yes, and the first to go when there's this ceasefire are actually those political prisoners na nakakulong. I-release yan because they wanted these criminals to be part of the to be consultants of the NDFP. That has always been the case. The last time we were trying to request for the release of 660 political prisoners. Pinaghirapan nating hulihan, sir. Tapos gusto nilang ma-release. So yeah, it's because we have this president whose yung desire talaga to end this insurgency is very, very clear. Kaya kami naman, malakas ang loob namin na tulungan ang gobyerno tapusin na ito.
General, right now, dahil sa pandemic, no, right now, ang daming yung nagiging accomplishments sa NTF-ELCAC. However, a lot of people, especially the citizens, they're questioning bakit doon pa rin napupunta yung efforts natin during the pandemic when we should be putting more of the efforts in really having more discipline during the pandemic, or even putting a lot of efforts more on the vaccine. Bakit meron tayong napupuntang budget more for the NTF-ELCAC? Parang nako-question po yun. Why is it still important that we are addressing the insurgency problem in the Philippines during these tough times?
You know, terrorism doesn't have a timeline. It doesn't consider this pandemic as a hindrance to their objectives. Remember, 52 years na natin hinaharap itong insurgency na ito. Wala tayong kamuang-muang. Almost 70,000 na ang napatay. That includes 13,000 from the security sector, and majority of them are civilians. Itong pandemic, I hope and I believe that we will be able to end this pandemic within the year or next, maybe in 2 years. This is over. But if we don't address this insurgency, especially at this time of pandemic, and especially at this time when they are about to be decimated, then they will be able to recover lost ground. So this is what we're trying to prevent. Right now, yung funding nila naapektuhan, yung recruitment nila naapektuhan. So really, they're feeling the crunch, and they're feeling the pressure of the NTF-ELCAC. Kaya ramdam nila, kaya lahat umaalma, lahat ng progresibong kaalyado nila. They're trying to convince them to shout out there and show your support, show your opposition to the NTF-ELCAC, including defunding the ELCAC. So can you imagine that this funding for the Barangay Development Program, inaasahan ito ng mga previously influenced barangays. Diyan sa Negros, marami niyan. Sa Bicol, marami niyan. So many of these communities are actually waiting for these programs of the government, livelihoods, farm-to-market roads, irrigation, all this. So can you imagine kung tapusin natin ito, tigilan natin ito because of the pandemic? Tomorrow we'll wake up having another 1,000 red fighters. Yeah,
I think it should be important, siguro, no, for our people to understand how the ELCAC was envisioned. Kasi nga earlier, si General Parlade was talking about the end of the national peace talk. Kasi nga parang moro-moro lang yung pinapadama lang tayo. So the president has continued his quest to attain peace. Kaya kung hindi mangyayari sa national level, so baka pwede naman sa localized. Kaya I think that's where the ELCAC has been envisioned, and so far it has been successful. Can you tell us, General, how far have we gone in the localized Kasi it seems that I've heard from my other political friends in the provinces na very very effective daw itong localized na ito. Maybe as spokesman of the ELCAC NTF, General, can you give us how much progress we have in the ELCAC? And parang masama naman yung i-defund itong isang programa na has been successful. So can you share that view with our people, General June?
Yes, sir. I'll talk about a bit about this localized peace engagement. The localized peace engagement is a cluster of the NTF-ELCAC that pursues these peace talks locally. So tama po yun, Sir Jing. We never abandon peace talks. We just cease from talking with the CPP and the NDF, those especially in Utrecht. Hindi na natin kailangan yung si Joe Masison at saka yung mga kasama niya doon. For us to be able to achieve this the peace, that genuine peace that we're trying to achieve. So localized peace engagement, and so far we have proven that this local peace table is very much is more effective than the national peace table. Why? because the members are grounded on the issues. For instance, meron dyan member ng clergy, nandyan si mayor, nandyan yung ABC president, nandyan yung mga civil society members, mga CSOs, and then may NGOs pa nga yung iba. So sila ang nakakaintindi kung ano yung problema. And if there are indigenous peoples in the area, they're well represented in the localized peace table. Ito yung wala doon sa national peace talks. So because of that, as of April, 16,141 ang nag-surrender. And that includes 3,584 regular NPA warriors, 3,584. And meron pang mga milisya ng bayan, meron din mga members ng underground mass organizations or members of these organs of political power. Ito yung mga shadow government na nandun sa mga malalayong lugar. This is the CPP organization in many of these far-flung areas na dati influence nila. So a lot of them are surrendering. I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we had more than 100 sanga sa Partido Lokalidad or SPL and Milisya ng Bayan surrendering in Rizal. Can you imagine kung hindi natin pinigilan yung pagsusurrender ng mga cluster of communities dun sa Rizal, aabot ng libo. Kaya lang merong pandemic, kaya inutay-utay natin yung pagsusurrender nila. So really, talagang this time, ang maganda dito is not only the armed component, the NPAs who are surrendering, but pati yung mga support system nila and those who are, yung mga MBs kasi yun yung pinagkukuhanan nila ng mga replacement nila. So ngayon nagsusurrender na. So wala nang aasahan itong NPA na papalit dun sa 3,584 na nag-surrender. Meron pa dyan yung mga na-capture. Meron pa dyan yung mga napatay. So napakalaki na nung accomplishment ng NTF-ELCA. And because of that trend, assuming again that we will be able to control the infiltration of the schools, the recruitment of indigenous peoples, these children, palagay ko in less than a year, within the end of the year, matatapos natin itong insurgency na ito. So very good figures, 16,100. Sa totoo lang, Sir Jing, halos naubusan ng pondo yung e-clip dahil sa dami ng nagdagsaan na mga surrenderies. Of those figure pala, meron din for verification, 2,923. So we have to do our due diligence to make sure that all these beneficiaries or those seeking benefits
The real one. Hindi
yes,
tayo napapasukan ng mga peke. Kasi minsan baka uubusin yung pera natin, ipapasok yung mga peke na So we're glad that you're really conducting this due diligence, General.
Yes, and one good thing, Sir Jing, about the surrenderies right now, they come in droves, groups of 4, 5, and in Sorsogon, for instance, isang buong platoon. Ang tawag nila ay Centro de Gravidad. This is the PSG of the France Secretary doon sa Sorsogon. Nag-surrender, iniwan yung kanilang France Secretary. 9 of them, actually 12 yun, naharangan yung 3. And another group, 10 na armed regulars. All in all, 20 yung M16 na sinurrender nila. Ito yung sinasabi ni Joe Masiso ng mga peke daw. Sabi ko, paano naging peke yun? Tingnan niyo yung mga armas nila. Interviewin niyo sila. In fact, meron doon magkakapatid ng mga NPAs. So, this is the main difference with the surrenderies that's happening now with our experience in the past 3 years, 4 years ago. Ito ngayon talagang sila na mismo ang nagkukumbinsi doon sa mga kasama nila. Sumuko na tayo, iwanan natin yan.
Pag mga 16,000 plus yan, so what happens, ang tawag pala dyan, General, balik loob program. So ano nangyayari pag after na sumurrender sila? Ano nangyayari dyan?
Alam niyo ba na yes, for every former rebel na nagbalik loob sa atin, the total in sum they're receiving something like 834,000 each, and that includes their housing, education, may livelihood, merong lupa, of course, may sarili silang lupa na so nakwenta namin yan, all in all 834,000 yan. Dati ito, alam nito Sir Jing, dati token lang, 25,000, 60,000, depende sa baril mo. But now they see that their government is really serious in providing all these these implements, for instance, sa pag-farm, hindi lang lupa, kundi mayroon pang farm implements, tractor, fertilizer, all this. Kaya nabubuhay na ngayon yung ating mga farmer rebels, hindi yung napapabayaan.
So mayroong sustainability yan, General, in that sense.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Bukod sa amnesty.
Mm-mm. So
yes, the amnesty is good.
So it's just interesting. We just want to know, para the public should know, masyadong na-publicize yung issue na parang tatanggalan yata ng pondo. Tapos I think you figured into being accused of uttering certain derogatory statement daw against the senators because of their
Sige, sir. Say the word, sir.
So-called attempt daw to defund the LCAC. Can you tell the public po? Kasi iba kasi yung media, ano ba talagang nangyari po diyan para malaman din ng ating this forum that we have is more of information that we gather from you to let our people know, no? Kasi this is being carried by all social media networks eh. So maybe you can tell us kasi mayroong resolution daw ang Senado, tapos there was an attempt to defund the LCAC, which you just said na it is a very good program of government. So paano po nangyayari po yan para po maliwanagan po ang ating mga kababayan?
Yes, thank you, sir, for asking that. Actually, it started with this allegation that, again, we red tag these community pantries. We did not. We were just telling the people that be careful with some of these organizers, not all of them, because we already checked. Okay naman, magaganda naman yung ibang community pantries, walang mga slogan dyan, walang mga hate campaign against their government. So maganda, and we support these community pantries. This is a Bayanihan spirit that we've been practicing in the past, hindi lang to ngayon. Kaya lang, ito ngayon, merong mga nagpo-propaganda. So as I said, we just have to be careful. Let's look out on this in these individuals and organizations. Again, inakusahan kami ng red tagging. What do you do if you think that your consumption of water, for instance, is too high, hindi regular? Of course, what do? You check, sine-check mo kung may mga leakage. So that's what we do. We check everything in our surrounding, in our communities, make them safe. But ang term na ginagamit nila, profiling. So there's a big difference between doing profiling and just checking, But really, ang issue doon is yung sensationalize ng our statements. They slant it to sensationalize, and then the use of terms like profiling. Now, I saw this interview of Senator Gordon. I'll go straight forward with this. So sabi niya, this NTF-LCAC, they're doing a lot of stupid things. They're doing a lot of things that's not that appropriate at this time of this pandemic. Sabi nila, ang dami na nga nagugutom. So they're stupid, they're imbecilic, and that's shameful, sabi niya. And they were talking about us, Yusek Badoy and Yusek and myself. So sabi ko, bakit ganito yung sinasabi ni Senator Gordon? And then may karugtong pa doon. Sabi niya, dapat dito siguro sa NTF-LCAC itanggalan ng pondo kasi sayang itong sinisweldo ng NTF-LCAC kay General Parlade as spokesman. So teka, marami na siyang nabanggit. Wala pang tumatama doon sa binanggit niya. So yun, in my interview with Becky Webb, kinala ko doon. Sabi ko, wait, why is this, why are these senators accusing us of, one, red tagging, secondly, of being stupid for doing our job, and then they're moving for the funding of the NTF-LCAC. Do they know what they signed for in this GAA? Nakalagay yan doon kung saan papunta yung funding ng NTF-LCAC. Papunta yan sa mga communities na dating apektuhan ng NPA, ng insurgency. Ito ba ang gusto nilang tanggalin? And then, for the information of the senator, I said, I don't receive a single cent from the NTF-LCAC because it's the armed forces, the army. giving me my allowance, my pay. So hindi si NTF-ELCAC. We don't get anything from those 19 billion funding. So alam dapat yan ng mga senador. So what is this thing that Senator Gordon is raising? Why defund us? And kung ako lang ang problema niya, bakit idadama yung buong NTF-ELCAC? Particularly this funding for the Barangay Development Program. So sabi ko, they are stupid if they continue defunding the NTF-ELCAC. So there's a qualifier there. Kaya lang, mga sinakyan ng media, ayun, lumabas sa headline, Parlade, Senator stupid. Tapos merong konting dagdag doon. So, that's how they play with our words. Kaya nagiging magulo at yun na, pinag-away-away kami. So I think that's ito na ngayon si Senator Gordon saying that I'm being disrespectful with the institution. So I think that's unfair.
Okay po.
I think it's really important to have due diligence, whether you are a citizen or a senator, to really understand the matter at hand, to really have the background and ask the people who are actually a part of it. I mean, I'm sure the senator can ask you more information about what happened with the community pantry, rather than just assume that you are doing such things for the sake of being a part of the NTF-ELCAC, when the NTF-ELCAC is more than just checking, diba? Like what you said, it's more on reviving each of the communities, even outside of the NCR. The problem is here. So the problem is here is the fact that we can't see physically the impact that it has in the communities outside the NCR, because Filipinos really don't have the attention span right now to see what's going beyond what's happening in the NCR. Hindi nila nakikita na talaga ang laki ng difference para sa mga secluded areas that is very, very far. Yung mga indigenous people, they really appreciate what's been going on. And gusto ko lang din i-mention sa mga viewers natin that we have more organizations and more information out there that's also giving light to this issue. For example, recently there was a documentary called Memoirs of a Teenage Rebel. And these are real former NPA members who joined as teenagers, who didn't know that they were being brainwashed to be a part of this organization, because they thought that they were joining these underground organizations, like what our general was saying. And then now they come out and share all of the stories that's been going on. Once they are in, mahirap na silang lumabas. And that's what the NTF-ELCAC is for, to tell them that we can still accept you back in the community. We can still help you integrate back to the community.
It's not the end of the road for them.
Yes, and that's part of the NTF-ELCAC, which is a great message to say that even if you have mistakes, or even if you did wrong, we can still forgive you and we can still help you become who you were before you joined the organization. So I think it's also a very Filipino way, whether you're a Christian or Muslim, it's part of our values, to forgive and try to give them a second chance. And that's what NTF-ELCAC is also part of. So another question that we have here, sir, is there anything else that you would like to forward regarding the aid?
Well, para sa akin kasi itong tunay na ayuda Kasi systemic tong ayudan to
Mm-hmm.
Itong ayuda natin sa COVID, puro ano lang to Dole out pero ito talaga tusok doon sa kabuhayan ng mga tao. Sustainable siya. And in fact, may mga nagko-comment sa social media na nagalit dahil dito sa movement na ang gusto nilang abolisin ang Senado. Dahil kung 240 million per senator yan tapos mapupunta lang sa mga balitaktakan na ganito na hindi naman nila bine-verify kung ano yung mga sinabi ni gano'n at sa ganito. At ngayon pa lang sila mag-iimbestiga. Can you imagine, meron na silang prognosis kung anong gagawin nila. Wala pa silang investigasyon. So, anyway, General Parlade, how is the weather in Lucena? Busy raw kayo.
Wala na yata siya.
Ha?
Medyo nag-lag lang konti.
Nag-lag
Ayan
lang
na
konti.
si
The
General.
weather is good. It's probably connection.
No,
Yeah.
General,
I can hear
to
you,
continue po, to continue po, itong naging controversial din, itong community pantry. Parang there is some sort of an allegation that this community pantry, parang sinasabi yata na nagiging parang front ng mga communist organization, that it's these people that are organizing this. Maybe can you comment on this po, na there is no such intention from your end to tag them as communist front, because the community pantry is really an activity that is geared towards helping the people, no? So ano pong masasabi ng ating ating butihing general tungkol dyan?
Actually, when I saw that community pantry, yung sa Maginhawa Street, natuwa ako eh. 3 days after na, matagal na yung 3 days na yung community pantry. And I said, more of this should happen nationwide, kasi totoo naman na maraming natutulungan, maraming nagugutom. But
Lumina yung internet. Nasa kanya.
Opo.
We're having technical problems.
Yeah, while we're waiting for General Parlade, we also want to shed light that we just want to reiterate the fact that all of the information that we are getting in terms of identifying these organizations are coming from the Balik Loob, or the former MPA themselves, which is part of the program of the NTF-LCAC. So it really has a system that's going around, where once we accept them and we help them give life, they help us also identify those who need the help of coming back to the program, or coming back to the nation. We also want, I really encourage everybody to watch Memoirs of a Teenage Rebel. I think you can find it online. Again, that's Memoirs of a Teenage Rebel. It really can shed light about the reality of the insurgency problem and how it is really affecting the most that they are being affected are the youth, more than anything else, because they are the most easily influenced. And this is why we have organizations like Hands Off Our Children. This organization is actually an NGO, and they are always fighting and sharing with the senators and sharing with our politicians that we need to be more diligent in our NTF-LCAC. They actually support it even more, because they are the parents of these teenage rebels who are being brainwashed to join the NPA and other related groups. So we hope that you can support groups like this, where it's really affecting parents who have lost children all of a sudden. They used to be, these children used to be at the top of their class, or they used to be very happy. And then eventually you can see that the resolve has changed. The way that they behave in front of their family has changed. And even their studies have been affected, to the point where they even drop out and become a part of these insurgency groups. So, General, since you're back, maybe you can continue with what we were asking regarding the communist part. The
community pantry.
Yes.
We actually have a little problem with our
Connection
with General, but of course we're waiting for him to give his opinion. Well, anyway, while we're waiting for General Parlade to come back, as we have already discussed in our exchange of ideas, it would seem that there has been a lot of miscommunication.
a lot, yeah.
Yeah, but we're happy that we gave General Parlade an opportunity to say his piece, no,
Clarify.
to make
Yeah.
to clarify matters, because especially coming from these issues, against a very effective general. In fact, in one of the columns of Manila Times, by Roberto Tiglao, he even called General Parlade as a hero. Can you imagine? Bobby Tiglao says that you should even appreciate this guy for risking his lives, uh, just to fight, because uh, one administration will be overtaken by another administration, and the NDF is still there. So if the Duterte administration is done on 2022, then General Parlade at the age of 56 will retire. He will put himself in danger because he's no longer with the administration, and perhaps the NDF or the NPA will still be, God forbid, continue at this time, and they might avenge, what uh, General has done, no? So yun ang sinasabi ni Roberto Tiglao. So it's really a risk on the part of those people in the armed forces, the army, to really be going out of their way. Kasi pinipersonal ito ng mga kalaban eh. Di po ba, General? Can you give us an insight on this? Hindi siya makapag- Hirapan siya sa kanyang...
Wala pa ring video. Well, anyway,
Yeah, I'm back.
Go on.
Yes,
Go on.
General, please.
General, you're
I'm
back.
back.
Have you heard what we were talking about?
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, please.
Please proceed.
Yeah, so I heard what you're talking about. Yeah, it's really a risk doing this. And for the longest time, they've been successful in intimidating people, members, workers in the government, local officials, elected officials, members of the bench. Alam mo, matagal na nilang ginagawa yan. Binubuli nila itong mga taong gobyerno, so that none of us will start talking against them. So, but there's a simple rule in the
Hirapan siya.
We're having problems with the receiving transmission here from the general who is in the Lucena City right now. What I would like to add to the discussion is to reinforce the observation of C. General, can you hear us? Can you continue what we were saying? Okay, well, continuing with what I was saying, I would like to deal also on how bad na pala, how deeply infiltrated na pala yung mga indigenous groups, no? Lalo na sa Mindanao, and how these people were used, no, for a very long time. And kasi ang NPA, Comjeng, walang teritoryo yan eh. Kaya no permanent address nga, di ba? So, kinukuha nila yung mga teritoryo ng mga lumads, yung mga IPs, no? And this has been very disastrous, not only to the culture of our indigenous people, but also the relative peace and harmony in their very own community, much more to the lives of those na pinatay nila at sinaktan nila. So, anyway, that's just my way of expanding the discussion. Pakituloy lang po, General, yung sinasabi po ninyo.
Yeah, bullying. One of the reasons why only a few talk against this Communist Party is because they're really bullish. Yung intimidation, yung harassment nila, ang tindi. meron pa yang technique na tatawagan yung family, for instance, of a judge or a fiscal hearing the case against an NPA. Tatawagan nila yung mga kamag-anak. Kapag hindi yan nagdesisyon si judge ng maganda, alam nyo na kung anong mangyayari sa inyo. So really, this thing has been happening. So kailan natin lalabanan itong mga bagay-bagay na ito? Somebody has to stand up there and talk about this. So sabi ko, yeah, I understand. And kanina, a while ago, I was talking about an unwritten rule. Is an unwritten rule kapag wala kang utang na dugo sa NPA, kapag hindi ka nagkamkam ng lupa ng iba, wala kang kasalanan sa those are the cardinal rules. Pagka ganun, wala kang dapat na ikatakot. So this is what I'm telling our fellow government employees. Let's discuss this. Let's talk about the atrocities of the NPAs. At sa kanila, hindi naman yan kasalanan sa organisasyon. As long as, sabi ko nga, wala kang utang na dugo at saka wala kang kasalanan sa community. But kung meron kang, for instance, rape, tapos hindi ka nakakasuhan dahil powerful member ka ng society, yun, that's when they come in. But mga ganito, ako I walk in the malls without much security. I go around without backup. Ano yun, naiintindihan ko yung dynamics dun sa organization. It's all about this propaganda. So hindi naman namamatay ang NPA sa propaganda, but this is what's effective in neutralizing their propaganda machinery and in ending this insurgency by the awareness that we bring to the people. So with that, I don't feel threatened with this CPP-NPA. Although si Joma minsan nagpapatake siya sa kanilang mga NPA to shut me up, but they can always do that in other ways.
General, meron pong nababalita na ano raw ang plano ninyo after ano po ba meron po ba kayong mga political plans daw? Kasi sa social media may mga lumalabas na ganyan eh. Ano po ba ang inyong present plans dahil baka raw malapit na kayong mag-retire?
Alam mo, kunyado, I just do my job after the last day of my service. Continuous lang ito. Yung agenda, hindi ko iniisip yan. Political, ito klaruhin ko. Yes, I am going to continue fighting this insurgency and this is a political matter. But election, ayaw kong pag-usapan yan. I don't know kung saan ito dadalhin.
Nabanggit ko yung general kasi napakalaki na naging kontribusyon ninyo at sakripisyo ninyo together with the LCAC, no? At dito nga sa peace talks na ito na na-localize na. Ang pagbabago ng kamulatan ng mga mamamayan na ngayon ay tumutulong na sa gobyerno. Dati-rati, pag kami pumapasok ng mga taon labas sa kanilang komunidad, they tend to just look the other way and let them go. Pero ngayon nagsusumbong na sila eh. Does this mean, General, na yung consciousness ng ating mga politicians ay hindi pa nakapag-a-adjust? At ang kanilang kaisipan ay ang mga military ay dapat nasa barracks lamang? Pero hindi ba, General, this is a battle for the hearts and minds of the people? And ngayon nananalo dito sa hearts and minds of the people ang gobyerno, ayan, ang counter-propaganda nila. So how would you comment on that, General?
Dapat alam na natin at this point that this is really a political war. We cannot end this insurgency by killing all these NPAs. We have to be able to kill an ideology. So, I think some of our local officials, especially tulong sila ngayon ng kabitaong bayan natin, napakalakas. This is actually a common testimony of these former rebels. Ang sinasabi nila, kaya kami sumuko kasi sa 10 communities o masa na pinuntahan namin, isa na lang ang tumatanggap sa amin at halos hindi pa kami pakainin. So they really lost the support of the masses because of what we're doing, because of this education, this exposure that we're doing, the knowledge that we're sharing to our communities. So it's important that we address this. Yung cognitive part is not really just the fighting, but the propaganda machinery. Kung ito ay matapatan natin ng gusto, and then that's it. Tapos na yung away na ito. So I hope these senators who are telling me to just go back to the armed forces and continue fighting the insurgents the way we know it, sana naintindihan nila yung sinasabi nila. Because I did my study, and from Lieutenant days, I've been studying this insurgency. Why is this happening in this area? Why is this local government executive like this? And what is the contribution of this local government executive to this insurgency, in this local insurgency? So nakita ko, it's really about good governance. Pag wala yung good governance, may problema tayo sa insurgency.
So we're about to end our program. It's just medyo nagkaroon lang tayo ng technical problem, General. But siguro sa katapusan po, one of the landmark legislation in the Duterte administration is the passage of the Anti-Terrorism Act. Ano pong tingin niyo po dito? Ito po ay isang batas na makakatulong din sa armed forces, sa Department of Justice, sa mga ating mga government officials who are in the task of ending this insurgency. Ano pong nakikita niyo dito po? Kasi it's still pending the Supreme Court, although I don't know if it's sub judice, but the law itself as passed by Congress. Ano pong nakikita niyo dyan?
Yeah, I think it's about timely that we have this kind of law, and I'd like to compare this to the Human Security Act of 2007. It's ridiculous, really. People call it the anti-police law because the police and the security sector can practically do nothing. Can you imagine, sir, for instance, if you want to conduct a surveillance on your subject, you have to ask permission. Sir Jing, we were ordered to conduct surveillance on you. Okay lang po ba yun? You have to ask permission from your subject. And for every day that you put somebody in jail for wrongly, mistaken identity or what, you have to pay 500,000 pesos a day. That is why, after 11 years of this implementation of the Human Security Act from 2007, only one suspect was actually put in jail. So talagang napakahirap yung Human Security Act as against this Anti-Terror Act. Very clear that we support the liberties, the rights of our citizens, freedom of expression, assembly, dissent. It's well protected because that's really enshrined in our Constitution, and we have to protect them. Yung human rights, napakalinaw niyan. And it's also very clear in the law that providing support to the terrorists, providing material support, tangible and intangible, financial support, safe house, for instance, providing mobility, providing food, that will make you a principal by, I just forgot the category, but just the same. The law says that you are liable for supporting an organization or an individual who has been first designated by the executive branch as a terror organization, and secondly, if these organizations are proscribed by the courts. So very clear dun sa batas. And I hope with this anti-terror law, it would be now clear to the activists to remain as activists remain to be an activist, a legitimate activist, and be careful in crossing this distinct line,
This thin line. This thin
joining
line.
the terrorist activities. Yes,
Alright.
these terrorist activities of the underground mass organizations, hiding under this the skirt of these above ground and legal front organizations. So yun yung objective natin, malinawan ang mga aktivista. But if you want to be an activist, make sure you do your thing properly, you research well, do your due diligence before joining another organization, which is the underground organization. So, yun. We just need to be able to focus on the ideologues. Ito talaga yung mga magugulo at mga violenteng tao. The rest of our citizens, they're fine.
So, General, we're about to end. Can we get your parting words as a summary of what we have discussed, especially on the issue of the LCAC and vis-a-vis red tagging and so on?
Yes.
Thank you po.
First of all, I'd like to thank you, all of you, for inviting me in this forum. It's really an opportunity to balance the playing field, level the playing field. Ika nga. Because we've been speaking out there, we've been giving our statements out there. None of this media would print our statements. None of them will cover our interviews. So this social media is really very, very important, and I think we're winning this counter propaganda campaign by educating our people to counter the negative narrative especially against the government. This insurgency, this revolutionary dual tactics has really been very effective in destroying our institutions, the media, our judiciary, the executive branch, the legislative branch. What they do is join these institutions and then destroy them. They join the church and destroy the church. They fight for women's rights by joining women's organizations, and then they destroy it. So yun po, for the past 52 years, that has been their strategy. Now with this kind of program and with the series of talks that we're doing, we're able to explain to the people what this revolutionary dual tactics is, this duality of this CPP and PA. NTF-ELCAC has been very effective in ending local communist armed conflict, not through the armed, the true military means, but the other aspects of this insurgency, which is socio-economic and political. So yes, I hope the government, I hope the people will continue to have an open mind in understanding what the government is trying to do to understand to end this insurgency. And really, this insurgency cannot be ended alone by the NTF-ELCAC. It has to be a whole of nation approach. So yes sir, maraming salamat po sa ating mga tagapakinig at sa ating mga hosts.
Maraming salamat po,
Thank you.
Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade Jr. Mabuhay po kayo at good luck po in all your future endeavors. Thank you.
Salamat. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
It's really important
Thank you.
that we look at the effects, or we look at the efforts of LCAC to be revolutionary, because what they're trying to do is not to kill more people but to help save more people. That's what we have to look at it. And what he's saying also with regard to social media, I'm also asking all of the influencers out there, all of the people who have such a good following or a big following on social media, to not just repost everything that's being shared on social media. You please do your research, because some of the things that have been said, for example, regarding the anti-terrorism law and regarding the red tagging issue, some of the influencers want to do good. They reposted these information because they have a good intention to help educate the people. But before educating the people, please educate yourself. Please make sure that you understand the entire situation or the entire issue in full. And maybe the educational system can also include it, because even me, when I was in high school and college, I did not really understand the insurgency issue, which is part of our socioeconomic education now, and it's also part of our history, no? And hopefully also it can go through technology. We need the government's help to really enhance technology, although it's a double-edged sword, because even the insurgency groups can use it to propagate these ideals. But it will also help them in informing us yung pagsusumbong nila sa government, or pag-share din ng magandang impormasyon. Sana ma-enhance din ang ating technology, lalo na yung Wi-Fi accessibility to Wi-Fi and other sources sa mga secluded areas na yun, because it's very important in this day to have that information. So
Yeah, well said, Zay. And Doc, say your words, parting words.
Ang parting shot ko lang po dito yung sinabi ni General Parlade. This is not about killing people. This is not about even killing an ideology. Pero when that ideology crosses the thin line and goes into an armed conflict, which would result in the destruction not just of the governmental system, but actual lives of people and their livelihood and the peace and order, ibang storya na po yan. Adopagkalinawan po, nagpapaalam na sa inyo.
Yes, marami pong salamat. Thank you so much for your viewing this program. You're listening to this program. And I thank my co-host for joining our program today. See you next week. Coffee Clutch at 10 a.m. at all social media platform, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. See you.